Hello everyone! In this week's video, I'm critiquing my viewers' art. A lot of you have been requesting I do this again, and I'm happy to help if I'm able to. So I posted on my community tab and social media that I'd be doing this again, and many of you submitted art for me to critique. Also, a little disclaimer before we jump in, just because I'm willing to give advice and critique other people's art does not mean that I think my art is perfect or that I know everything. I'm just trying to share knowledge that I have learned in hopes that it can help others. Anyways, let's get started. I want to start by saying thank you for drawing Luguan from Link Click. It is so underappreciated and I don't see many people talk about it or make fan art for it, so I'm happy to see this. I do really like your rendering style. It is very soft and you do a nice job of defining forms in a gentle way with soft changes in color. Something I want to talk about is the hair. It doesn't really look like it's matching the form of the head. So if I draw some lines on the face, they are curving in an upward way because his head is tilted upwards. This is good. However, if I look at the curve of the hair, it seems to be curving downwards and it makes the head feel off. I'm going to start by extending the area in between the hair strands to make them longer. Then I'm going to use the liquify tool to push the bangs upwards. I'm also going to lessen the volume of his hair. Because the top of his head is going away from us, I want the shape to kind of recede a bit. I'm also trying to make the shape better match the shape of his head. It kind of felt like there was just a little too much hair before. I painted in with some white to extend some of the strokes for the hair so they go higher up on the head and curve in a way that I want. Now as I was doing this, I flipped the canvas and I noticed something. It's kind of funny because even when I flip the canvas with other people's work, it still makes me notice things that are kind of off. Anyways, when I flipped the canvas, I noticed that the ears were really low. Now it is true that the ears do appear to be lower on the head when the head is tilted upwards. However, where they were placed here felt a bit extreme. And this was contributing to the hair feeling out of place because it needed to extend more to compensate for the ears being too low. So I moved them up and touched things up a little bit to make this edit fit in. So here's the before, and here's the after. Technically all I did was slightly change the shape and volume of the hair and moved up the ears. These are simple changes, but I hope this feedback was helpful. This artist submitted a few pictures to me, and in each one I noticed that the lower half of the face felt kind of large. So I'm going to take the liquify tool and try to push everything into proportion a bit. Overall, the shapes you are drawing do feel pretty good. You have it curve in and out in ways that define the face and its form. It's just that the top and lower sections are out of proportion with each other. The lower felt a bit too big, and the upper cranium felt a bit too small. I also adjusted that area with the liquify tool. I kind of pushed it out a bit and made it a little bit larger. Something that can help for face proportions is to remember that the eyes often go at the halfway point of the face. Of course, you can stylize them to be lower or higher, but for standard proportions, placing the eyes around the halfway point can help the face feel proportionate. So here's the before and after. In all of your pieces, I really like your color choices, and I hope this information helped a bit. For this piece, I wanted to talk about random objects and placing them in a pleasing way. In the water, we have these flowers. There is a line of 3 down here, and the ones up here kind of make a box shape. Because of the way the flowers are placed, my eyes keep getting stuck and they don't really flow around nicely. However, if we change the placement of the flowers, we can help encourage our eyes to travel smoothly along the piece. So let's start by getting rid of some of the flowers. I will roughly cover them up. Also, a little tip when placing objects to look kind of random. Don't be afraid to group items together. Like I'm going to move this little flower up here next to this larger one. Now my goal is to have the viewer's eye travel in this kind of way. A nice smooth motion that goes back and forth down the piece. So I'm going to take different flowers and place them in this way. Once again, I'm kind of trying to group things. The second group on the left will have 3 flowers, but I also make sure to have some flowers be on their own. They don't all have to be grouped together. We want things to feel kind of random. And if they were all grouped together, it would feel less random. It can be really hard to randomly place items in a pleasing way. Because technically if something is truly random, it can be unpleasing. But like we want it to look nice. But anyways, here's the before and after. Like I said before, my eyes were having a hard time traveling around the picture. But in the edited one, it feels more guided. And I hope this helps, and thank you for submitting your picture. The texture you did for the water is very unique, and I quite like it. Also, I do apologize if I still sound a little bit sick. I'm still kind of recovering from the sickness I got last week. But anyways, this picture is very pretty. I like the lighting and the elegant color palette. What I wanted to talk about for this piece was the composition. The upper half of the picture does a good job at drawing my attention. However, the lower half of the piece doesn't have much to look at. And if you wanted to, I feel like you could just crop the piece to just be the upper portion, since the lower portion isn't really adding much to the picture. However, if you are set on keeping it as a full body illustration, I recommend adding a little bit more to the lower half. Like maybe add some more stars, but make them not as bright. That way there is something to fill the space, but it doesn't draw in too much attention. I also added some slight highlights to the legs and shoes to help them stand out a little. The values were kind of blending in with the background, especially for the shoes, and they were feeling a little bit lost. So I was trying to help them stand out just a little bit. So yeah, this isn't much, just adding a little bit of interest to the lower half so it fits with the upper part of the piece. Your character is very neat, and I like how you texture the eyes. I also find the lines you add for texture to be a nice touch. However, you want to be careful when adding these. You added some to the bridge of the nose, and it may just be me, but it makes the flow for the bridge of the nose feel like it's crooked or like it's turned. I recommend if you add lines to make sure they are flowing in the way the form is going. Like instead of diagonal lines on the nose bridge, maybe have them be vertical. The second thing I wanted to touch on is the pupils. They are both shifted to the left, and I feel like this makes the irises feel a bit off. I'm going to use the liquify tool and shift them more towards the middle. I also make them more circular in shape. Since the irises are more like circles than ovals, I feel like a circle pupil would fit in better with them. Lastly, I do really like the glow of the face, but it does feel a bit strong and unnatural, and maybe this is the intent. But if this is not your intent, I would recommend toning down the glow a little bit so the character doesn't look like they're kind of a light bulb. So yeah, those are my little critiques, and I hope they help a little bit. I really like this picture and its moody tone. A small thing that I feel like needs to be adjusted is this eye. It feels a bit out of line with the other one. I'm going to push it up a bit to make it line up a bit more. Secondly, the highlights in the eyes feel like they're placed a little too high. They seem to kind of be in the eyelash line area possibly. So I'm going to move them down to be more into the iris. I feel like this simple change really helps the gaze of the eyes. Lastly, I feel like this piece would feel a bit more finished if we added some highlights, like a little bit to his nose and also some to his hair. I feel like you are going for a dark and moody look, so I won't go too crazy with the highlights. I just add some to help define some of the forms a bit more. So here's the before, and here's the edited version. Overall, very nice work, and I hope this tip was helpful. I love the color choices and energy of this piece. It feels very lively. Something that did stand out to me is that this area of the shirt feels a bit awkward. Shirts can be constructed differently, but a lot of times there will be a seam where the sleeve of the shirt meets the torso part of the shirt. And I feel like adding this in would help this area and its shape. I'm also going to color over the shirt a bit to help define the shapes of the sleeve. I'll also slightly tweak the folds and use the liquify tool to subtly move things around. Next, I want to talk about the face a bit. The nose feels a bit too high and small, so I'm going to move it down and make it a bit larger. The mouth also feels a bit shifted to the right. I'm going to move it to the left and slightly change its shape. The shape felt a bit skewed, so I'm trying to straighten it out a little bit. And here's the original, and here's my edited version. Like I said, I really love your color choices and how lively the picture feels, and I hope these tips helped a bit. Before we continue, I want to thank Tokyo Treat and Sakurako for sponsoring this video. Tokyo Treat and Sakurako want to share Japanese culture and invite everyone to experience Japan from the comfort of their own homes through their snack boxes. Tokyo Treat and Sakurako are both monthly Japanese snack subscription boxes, but both offer different experiences. First, we have Tokyo Treat with the theme of Snacktacular Christmas. Christmas in Japan is really one of the happiest and yummiest times of the year. Tokyo Treat team is thrilled to bring you a taste of amazing holiday flavors through a Snacktacular Christmas. Packed with a special edition box full of favorite snacks stamped with Santa's approval, like Kit Kat Strawberry Chocolate Cake, Christmas Kokutao Donut, Christmas Cake Gummies, Christmas Crunch Mix, and many more. You can learn more about all the snacks you receive as well as allergen information in this really handy booklet. The booklet also contains a ton of information about Japanese culture. Two of my personal favorite snacks from this box are the Snow Sugar Corinto and Premium Ghana Chocolate Caramel. This uniquely Japanese snack features a light dough fried to crispy perfection, with a sweet and sesame flavor. These creamy velvety chocolate squares are the perfect blend of cocoa and caramel. They're really yummy. Next we have Sakurako with the theme of holidays in Hokkaido. Discover the beauty of winter in Hokkaido, the northern part of Japan. When snow covers everything, Hokkaido becomes a peaceful and inviting place. Celebrate the winter season through authentic Japanese snacks curated by Sakurako team, like milk and chocolate cookie, milk mochi, Hokkaido butter cookie, and all of these pair excellently with the matcha and matcha tea. This month's tableware item is an indigo yuzu dish. It's really pretty and I love the design. Two of my favorite snacks from this box are the Okinawan salt daifuku and milk and chocolate cookie. These daifuku are subtly sweet and savory. These are a very unique flavor as I'm used to most daifuku being fairly sweet, and this was a very interesting change. This milk and chocolate cookie was so yummy. The white chocolate is made with the finest Hokkaido milk and had a lovely smooth texture. During this season of giving, Tokyo Treat and Sakurako both make lovely gifts for the special people in your life, or even make for a lovely gift for yourself. You can use my code JAWMANGA to get $5 off your first box. Thank you so much again to Tokyo Treat and Sakurako for sponsoring this video, and let's get back into critiquing. The artist that submitted this piece said that they always feel like something is off with this picture, but they aren't sure what. And I feel like the thing that feels off is the gaze of the characters. You drew them as if they're supposed to be looking at each other, but Hal is looking at her neck, and Sophie is kind of looking over him. Also, Hal's jawline feels kind of long, so I'm going to shorten it a bit and move in the ear. I'm also going to slightly adjust his hair to make it fit the form of his head. These are all kind of just small adjustments to sort of help his proportions a little bit. Next, I'm going to try to adjust the head positions to make them look at each other. I try my best to do this, but with the way they are positioned, I can only move their heads so much. So I don't get the gaze of their eyes to perfectly look at each other, but it does get overall closer. So yeah, here's the before and after. Now it feels like the characters are connecting a little bit more, and I hope this helps you solve what feels off. Your character is very cool, and I do have a kind of simple critique for this, and it's about the horn placement. The one in the front is lining up with the eye, however the other one feels like it's more on the side of the head, and it's not lining up with the eye like the one on the right is. I would recommend moving the right horn more to the side to match the other one. When you have characters with horns, it's very important to keep the placement in mind and trying to make sure that both horns feel consistent in their placement. Unless they're asymmetrical on purpose, but then you want to make it really obvious. But yeah, your character's cool and I hope this helped. This artist said that they had gotten feedback from non-artists, and the people giving feedback said that they feel like the heads this artist draws are too long. The artist was wondering if I thought the same. And my answer is yes, I do feel like the head is drawn too long. It makes the face feel very narrow and out of proportion. And something I kind of want to talk about as I'm editing this is that just because a person is not an artist, that doesn't completely discredit their feedback. Even people that don't draw can see things that may be off in our art. Obviously, sometimes people that don't draw don't totally understand some of the choices we artists make. But I think it's still important to take in feedback from all people. Sometimes the feedback is good, and sometimes it's not very good or helpful, so it is important to analyze the feedback and ask ourselves if the feedback is useful, helpful, or correct. I do think it's good that you're getting feedback from multiple sources. A lot of times if multiple people are saying the same thing, like they feel like the head is drawn too long, you may want to try to draw them less long. For my edit, I made the head overall wider and also moved the facial features down. I didn't really change the facial features at all, just their placement and the width of the head and body. And overall your style is very cute, but I do feel like making the heads less long would help it. This artist submitted some of their old art with a redrawn version, and I always love seeing improvement, and I do have to say you have improved a lot. In the first picture the hair shading is kind of too soft and doesn't really define the form, but in the new piece we get much better shape definition, and you do a lovely job breaking up the strands of shading and highlights. The highlights also really help us feel the form of the head, and the proportions of the new one are an improvement. However, the head does feel a bit big still. I would recommend drawing the head and the neck a bit smaller. The neck and head felt like they were a little too much for the torso. Also, the way you draw eyes now is very pretty, and to enhance the face a bit, I'd recommend drawing the nose a bit lower. Also, the mouth and nose felt a little bit too small, so I made them a bit larger to fill the face more. And so here's the original, and here's the edited one. Thank you so much for sharing your improvement. Keep up the good work, and I hope these tips were a bit helpful. This artist said that the heart is supposed to be glowing, but they didn't know how to make it look like it was glowing against the light sky, and there are a few ways you can go about doing this. The first one may feel a bit funny and kind of stylistic, but you can add a darker ring around the heart. This gives the feeling that it is radiating some kind of light, even though we are using a darker color. Another option is to color over the heart with a layer set to add or add glow. This layer mode can make pretty much everything look glowy and shiny. And the last option is to combine these two options. Use some add glow, and help the glow edge stand out, apply some darker color around the edge. This can give a kind of magical feel to the item. I hope this is the kind of look you were trying to capture. This artist expressed that they feel like their art doesn't ever really feel finished, and they aren't sure how to make it feel more finished. Firstly, I'd recommend cleaning up areas a bit more. Some areas do feel a bit rough, like around the ear. There are random lines kind of throughout the piece, and leaving tiny specks in the background can make the piece feel more sketchy and unfinished. So I'd recommend cleaning things up a little bit. But a major thing that is leaving the picture feeling unfinished is the lack of value shifts. If I convert this piece to grayscale, we can see that the shading all has a very similar value. The grays all kind of blend together with the shading. So I'm going to go in with some shadows and highlights to further define the forms. For the shadows, I add some under the head, around the torso, around the eyes, around the hair, on the underside of the nose, and on the upper lip. If you find you have a hard time placing shadows, I recommend studying the planes of the face and how light interacts with them. Next, I'm going to paint in some simple highlights. I kind of just went over where you placed highlights and made them a bit stronger. Next, I add a dark gradient to the bottom and a light gradient around the face. This will help draw the viewer's eye to the face and less towards the bottom of the piece. Lastly, we have this very nice blue light on the jacket, but you didn't add it anywhere else. So I'm going to use this blue to help define the edges a bit more and make things like the hair and jawline pop. Also, because the red is a very similar value to the skin, I would maybe recommend changing it, but I also really liked the pop of the red, so I decided to keep it. Plus, now that I've added additional highlights, this kind of helps the character stand out a bit more. So here's the before, and here's the after. By pushing the values and defining the edges a bit more, I feel like we now have a more finished result. I hope this helps you with creating more finished feeling pictures in the future. In their email, this artist says that they have been drawing for a long time, but they always feel like something is off in their art. To quote them, they said, "I don't know if it's the shading, the values, the line art, or heck, even the anatomy itself, minus the fact that my art style looks like it has two eyelids. That's a very weird stylistic choice I do, and I don't know why." And I'm going to be honest, I know it's a stylistic choice to have the double eyelid, but I do feel like it's hurting your art rather than enhancing it, and I'm going to show you why. So if I draw my basic head shape like this, and then try to fit that shape into a skull, please bear with me, I never really draw skulls. But anyways, if I try to fit my character into a skull, I need to have the eye and the eyelid fit into the socket of the skull, kind of like this. So if we apply this to your character, because the eyelids are so long, it implies that the character has super long eye sockets. And because of the super long eye sockets, it leaves very little room for the forehead area, which makes the proportions of the face feel off. Now, of course, I don't want to take away something from your art that you like, so my recommendation would be that if you want to continue doing the double eyelid thing, you need to shorten it. And because I am shortening the eyelids, I need to move the forehead or cranium down, since it doesn't need to be as high up. By lowering the double eyelid down, we can move it into a realm where it feels more believable, and also doesn't mess with the proportions too much. And so here's the before and after. Of course, this is your art and you can do as you please. However, I do feel like lowering the eyelids would help your characters feel more in proportion. In their email, this artist expressed that they have been working on this design, but something feels off with it and they aren't sure what. So let's see if I can help. Firstly, on a kind of unrelated note, I would recommend not having the ribbons go around the knee. It'd make bending the leg very uncomfortable for the character. I would recommend moving it below the knee. And as I've been looking at this character trying to figure out what feels off, I noticed that it may be the hair. In front view, the hair is lining up under the eyes. However, when the character is turned, the hair is much more on the side of the head. So to keep things consistent, I would keep the long bits on the side of the head instead of allowing them to come forward on the face. This would help keep the hair more consistent. Another thing that I feel like would help is letting us see the character's ears. With how the hair is styled, I feel like we should be able to see them. This does mean you'd have to play around with the placement of the hearts a bit. I'd recommend maybe making them a bit smaller and moving them up a bit on the head. I feel like adding in the ears would help the head feel more natural and human-like. Because she's missing them, it's making it feel like something is off. And because the hair seems to be pulled back into the heart buns, we should be able to see the ears and they shouldn't be covered. Lastly, the feet feel a bit long. Ballerina's feet do often appear to be long because of the shoes, but I feel like you can dial this back a bit. These aren't major design changes, but I hope that maybe they are the things that feel a little bit off and that this helped you. Well, those are all the critiques for this video. I hope they are all helpful to the artists and those of you watching. Thank you so much to everyone that submitted art. I always love seeing everyone's pictures. Before we end, I want to say a super big thank you to my awesome YouTube members and Patreon patrons for their support. It means so much to me. And thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all next week in my next video. Bye!